Let's talk more about the way trauma changes the brain. We are going to focus in on the three important aspects of the brain: the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. Are you ready to learn more? Keep on watching. Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Cammy, and I'm the president of Bliss in Being. I help trauma survivors just like you build the life you deserved from day one. Safety, trust, wealth, connection, and confidence. You can have all that and more when you leverage your hardest moments into your greatest strengths. Let's start with how stress activates the amygdala. The amygdala is an almond-shaped structure that helps us process emotions. The amygdala also helps regulate how we respond to fear and create emotional memories. Traumatic stress overactivates the amygdala. And when this happens, our fear responses become way more intense. What this means is that memories of traumatic events can become nightmares and flashbacks. This can also mean that emotion-driven thoughts become so intrusive that they actually prevent us from sleeping. An overactive amygdala also means that our brain can have difficulty realizing the difference between a threat then and a threat now. This means that when we're reminded of a traumatic event or experience, the amygdala responds the exact same way it would if we were experiencing the trauma for the very first time. This causes us to be on high alert all the time and can make us feel like we're constantly on edge. The results of an overactive amygdala can look different for each of us, but untreated traumatic stress almost always causes us to exhibit more fear of stressors than others. In addition to that, an overactive amygdala can also cause chronic stress, heightened fear, increased irritation, and ability to calm down, and insomnia. Let's also talk about the hippocampus. Traumatic stress also affects the hippocampus, the part of the brain which is responsible for storing and retrieving memories and differentiating between the past and the present. Studies show that experiencing trauma and living with high levels of stress can decrease the volume of the hippocampus. This can make it hard for us to distinguish between the past and the present. Because of this, even environments that remind us of traumatic experience can cause fear, stress, and panic. Instead of the brain being able to easily create and store new memories, traumatic stress can keep old memories at the forefront of our minds, causing us to live in a constant state of hypervigilance and intense emotional reactivity. Now, let's move on to the executive functioning part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex helps us reason well, regulate and interpret emotions, control impulses, and solve complex problems. Scientific data shows that traumatic stress can diminish the functionality of the prefrontal cortex. This can negatively impact our ability to learn new information, manage our emotions well, and solve problems. In other words, traumatic stress can make logical thinking difficult, which in turn makes us feel incapable of controlling our fear. So how do these brain changes affect our day-to-day life? Living with traumatic stress can change the brain so much that daily life can feel like a real challenge. High levels of stress hormones, coupled with an overactive amygdala, a shrunken hippocampus, and less active prefrontal cortex, can cause anxiety, insomnia, irritability, flashbacks, nightmares, panic attacks, memory issues, poor concentration, trouble making decisions, difficulty learning new things. Traumatic stress can also lead to fatigue. When the brain uses a good amount of energy just trying to protect us from perceived threats, we can feel emotionally, physically, and mentally depleted. Feeling this way can then make daily responsibilities and self-care activities feel like a giant chore. Living with a brain that's always on alert can also make relationships really challenging. When we constantly feel threatened, paranoid, or afraid, we may not accurately pick up on how others feel and think. This can lead to communication problems that can put a strain on some of our most important relationships. If you are ready to start healing from trauma, reach out and I can help. If you're ready to start healing from trauma today, we can set up a free consultation and just get to know each other a bit more.